The porcelain teacup shattered on the marble before her tray hit the floor. Clara Sterling knelt down, pocketed the shards, kept walking. The radio in the hallway had just said his name, Kang Do-hyun, the quiet one, dead of a heart attack at 35. Clara is 32, a black woman in a starched white apron, 8 years as the live-in housemaid of the Kang mansion. She served his breakfast every morning at 6. He always looked at her when he thanked her. Nobody else did. Kang Do-hyun ran one of the oldest syndicate branches on the East Coast. Bespoke charcoal suit, black koi tattoo curling up the left side of his neck, steel signet ring on his right hand. A man the whole family feared and courted. 3 days later, a letter arrives. Estate lawyer Yoon Ji-won. Clara is convoked to the reading of the will. She walks into a room full of gold Rolexes and emerald silk. So-yeon Kang points her to a wooden chair against the wall, in case she has to serve tea. The lawyer opens the folder, reads the secondary assets, then reads the mansion clause. The family starts to laugh. They stop laughing when Yoon strikes the table and lifts a second sealed envelope, Kang Do-hyun's personal declaration, written by his own hand. Clara raises her eyes to his portrait on the wall, and what she is about to find behind his philosophy shelf. Before starting the story, comment down below where you are watching from and what time it is there. If stories of karma, love, and hidden truths move you, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a member and help our channel. Clara Sterling balanced the silver breakfast tray on her left palm and pushed the study door open with her hip. The porcelain teacup rattled once against its saucer. She steadied it without looking. 6 years of this hallway. She knew where the floor sloped, where the runner curled, where the radiator ticked at 7:40 every morning. The radio in the pantry was still on behind her, a woman's voice, precise, no color in it. Kang Do-hyun, 35, massive cardiac arrest. Pronounced at 4:11 a.m. at his private residence. The name landed inside her chest before her mind caught up. The tray tilted. The teacup slid 2 inches on the silver. Clara stopped in the middle of the corridor and closed her fingers around the handle. Too late. The cup went. It hit the marble and split into 4 clean pieces at her shoes. She did not move for one breath. Then she knelt. Straight back, knees together, the way Aki had taught her the first week. She gathered the shards into her white apron. One piece was still warm. She pressed it against her palm harder than she needed to. Down the hallway, a door opened. Heels. She recognized them by weight. So-yeon. Clara stood, tray still balanced on her left hand, apron gathered at the front like a small bruised animal. "Careful with the floor," So-yeon said as she passed. She did not look at Clara. She looked at the marble. "Han did that floor yesterday." "Yes, ma'am." So-yeon kept walking. The scent of her perfume stayed behind for a moment. Expensive, sharp, and then it was gone too. Clara went to the service pantry. She emptied the shards into the paper-lined bin, all 4 of them, and covered them with the folded newspaper she used for that. She washed her hands. She replaced the cup from the reserve set on the 3rd shelf, the ones Do-hyun preferred, the ones nobody would ever pour into again. She poured fresh tea. She carried the tray back to the study. She only realized halfway down the corridor that she was still going to serve breakfast to a man who had died at 4:11 that morning. She kept walking. She left the tray outside the study door on the low console. Steam rose off the teacup for a long time. Nobody came for it. At noon, Aki found her in the pantry, standing very still in front of the sink. The old woman did not ask. She put her small warm hand on the middle of Clara's back and left it there for the count of 10. Then she took the tea towel off Clara's shoulder, folded it, and put it down on the counter. "You still have the West Wing to finish," Aki said. Not unkind, just true. Clara nodded. She went to finish the West Wing. For 2 days the mansion moved like a body without a spine. Voices in rooms that had never held voices. Hyun-woo's overloaded suit crossed the foyer twice an hour, phone against his ear, gold watch flashing under the chandelier. So-yeon rearranged flowers that did not need rearranging. Min-jae arrived on the second afternoon, in a navy jacket and a soft, polite smile, and touched everyone on the elbow. He touched Clara on the elbow too, in the corridor, and said, "How are you holding up, Miss Sterling?" She said, "Fine, sir." He kept the smile in place 3 seconds longer than a normal person would have. Then he was gone. She dusted the philosophy shelf herself, the way she always had. Do-hyun had shown her, once, which spines he did not want touched by anyone else. She had never asked why. She dusted them the same way now. On the third morning, the letter arrived. Heavy paper. Yoon Ji-won's letterhead. Her name in full. Miss Clara Sterling. Domicile in the staff wing. Requested presence at the reading of the last will and testament of Mr. Kang Do-hyun. Tuesday, 10 a.m. Library on the ground floor. She read it twice. At the sink, apron still wet from the morning. Ok looked over her shoulder. Ok did not say anything. She only nodded once, small, like she had known. Tuesday morning, Clara put on a fresh uniform. Black dress pressed the night before. White apron starched. Stockings without a run. She pinned the low bun tight. She walked into the library at 9:58. They were already there. Hyun-woo at the head of the reading table in a burgundy pocket square. So-yeon beside him in emerald silk, ankles crossed. Min-jae at the far end near the window, hands folded. Yoon Ji-won at the head, his worn leather briefcase open, silver-rimmed glasses low on his nose. Seo-jin stood by the door, hands at his sides, earpiece coiled into his collar. Clara stopped 2 steps inside the doorway and waited. So-yeon turned her head, just her head. She looked at Clara from the shoes up, then she looked at the wall behind Clara. "You can sit there," So-yeon said, and lifted one finger. A wooden chair against the wall, not at the table, in case Mr. Yoon needs tea. Yoon Ji-won did not look up from his papers. His jaw moved once. Clara walked to the wooden chair. Erect back, hands folded on her apron, she sat. Hyun-woo laughed under his breath and adjusted his cuff. Yoon Ji-won cleared his throat, unfolded the first document, and said, "We may begin." Clara did not know yet why her name had been called into that room. She only knew that the teacup she had broken on Sunday morning was still, at that moment, in 4 pieces at the bottom of a paper-lined bin she had emptied with her own hands, and that no one in that library except Ok had noticed a single missing thing in this house in 6 years. The lawyer opened the folder. Yoon Ji-won read the first pages the way a surgeon opens skin, slow and without decoration. Secondary accounts, a property in Busan, 2 boats no one in that room had set foot on, shares in a shipping firm Hyun-woo already ran. So-yeon let her stiletto tap once against the leg of her chair. Min-jae folded his hands and smiled at nothing. Clara did not move from the wall. The lawyer turned a page, then another. He set the sheet down flat, aligned it with 2 fingers, and looked up over his thin silver rectangles. "The main residence," he said, "the Sterling Ridge estate. Full transfer." Hyun-woo leaned forward, elbows on his knees. The Rolex slid a half-inch down his wrist. "To the sole beneficiary named in this document." Yoon Ji-won lifted the paper so the seal was visible. The wax was intact. He read the name once, without inflection. Clara Sterling. For 1 full second, nobody in the library breathed. Then So-yeon laughed. It came out of her small and sharp, more like a cough than a sound. Hyun-woo turned his head toward the wall, saw Clara there in her apron, and laughed with his whole chest. He laughed until his shoulders shook and the pinky ring caught the light. "The maid," he said. "The maid." Min-jae did not laugh. He watched Clara's hands. Clara kept them at her sides. She kept her chin level. She let Hyun-woo finish his laugh alone. Yoon Ji-won waited. He waited until the sound thinned, and when it thinned he brought his flat palm down on the mahogany table. It was not loud, it was the small controlled slap of a man who did not need volume. Every head in the room snapped toward him. "There is a second document," he said. He drew a smaller envelope from beneath the folder, cream paper, sealed with the same wax. He held it up so the seal faced them. Personal declaration, written and signed by Kang Do-hyun 11 months ago, notarized, to be read here, in this room, in the presence of his family. Hyun-woo stopped smiling. Yoon Ji-won broke the seal with a thin silver blade. The paper made a dry, patient sound as it opened. He read that Kang Do-hyun had watched Clara Sterling for 6 years and learned from her what nobody in his family had taught him. He read that she had returned a wristwatch he'd left on the sink of the west bathroom without ever mentioning it. He read that the mansion was to be hers because she had been the only person inside its walls who treated it as a home instead of a prize. Yoon Ji-won lowered the paper. He did not look at Hyun-woo, he looked at Clara. "He asked me to add one line," he said, "that she was seen." Clara felt something behind her sternum contract and then release. She did not lift a hand to her chest. She did not close her eyes. She turned her head, one small motion, and looked at the portrait above the fireplace. Kang Do-hyun looked back at her from the canvas. The koi curved up the left side of his neck. The dark eyes held. She held them. So-yeon stood up. The stiletto came off the carpet with a small, deliberate scrape. "This is a joke," she said. "It is not," Yoon Ji-won said. "He was medicated. He was tired. This paper does not stand." "It stands." Hyun-woo pushed his chair back. He walked 3 steps toward the table and stopped, because Seo-jin had moved from the doorway to the corner of the desk without anyone hearing him do it. Seo-jin's hands were at his sides, the earpiece coiled black into his collar. He looked at Hyun-woo and said nothing at all. Hyun-woo turned to Clara instead. "How much?" he said. Clara did not answer. "Name a number." Ok, standing near the small side door, pressed the jade pendant against her collarbone. Clara caught the motion in the edge of her vision and understood it the way she'd understood every gesture in this house for 6 years. Okay, he was telling her to breathe. She breathed. "I have no number, sir," she said. Her voice came out low and even. It was the same voice she'd used the morning she'd said good morning to Kang Do-hyun over the breakfast tray. "I will need time to think." "You will not," So-yeon said. Min-jae rose. He walked around the back of his cousin's chair with his small, polite smile and stopped a respectful arm's length from Clara. He did not touch her. He tilted his head. "Miss Sterling," he said softly, "you must be overwhelmed. Please, let us make this easier." Clara looked at him. He was the only one who had not laughed. He was the only one whose hands were still folded. His voice was warm and even and very careful, and something inside Clara's chest closed a small door she did not know she had been keeping open. "Thank you, Mr. Park," she said. His phone vibrated in his inside pocket. He glanced down, killed the call, and slid it back. Clara had heard the ringtone. It was the same 3-note chime she had heard twice through the study door in the last month, both times when Do-hyun's voice had gone quiet, in the particular way it went quiet when he was speaking to someone he did not trust. She had assumed, then, that the voice belonged to a rival. She had never considered that Min-jae might have been standing on both sides of that line. She smiled, small, the way a woman smiles when handed a piece of information she cannot yet use. "I will need the night," she said to Yoon Ji-won. "I will give you my answer tomorrow." Yoon Ji-won nodded once. He gathered the papers. He rose. So-yeon crossed the library and stopped in front of Clara, with the stiletto planted an inch from Clara's shoe. She was close enough that Clara could smell the plum lipstick. "You will not sleep in this house tonight," she said. Clara held her ground. She kept her voice at the same low, even register. "Ma'am," she said, "does your husband know about Mr. Park?" So-yeon's face did not move. But the color under the cheekbone did. A single flare, small, gone in a breath. Hyun-woo, 3 steps behind, heard the name. "What did she say?" he said. Nobody answered him. Clara turned her eyes back to Min-jae. He was still smiling. The smile had not shifted a millimeter, but behind the smile, for one clean instant, something in his warm brown eyes went very still. It was the stillness of a man recalculating a plan. Clara understood, then, that the fight in this room had never been about a house. Clara heard the iron gates before she saw the headlights. 2 sets, then 3, then 4. Gravel spat under tires that were not breaking gently. She was in the kitchen with Aki, stirring a small pot of pasta for the old woman who had not eaten since noon. The clock above the stove read 11 minutes past 9. She turned off the burner. Okay, he stood up from the wooden stool, jade pendant swinging against her chest. Clara raised one hand, palm flat. "Wait." Then Clara walked, unhurried, to the intercom by the pantry door and pressed the black button that connected to Seo-jin's earpiece. Static. She pressed it again. Static. Seo-jin was not on the property. Clara understood the shape of the night in a single breath. She turned to Aki and spoke in a low, even voice. "Pantry. Lock it from inside. Do not open until you hear my voice say your name twice." The old housekeeper's warm, dark eyes filled, but she nodded and went. The bolt slid. Clara turned back to the pot and switched the flame on again, low. Pasta continued to soften. Something on the stove had to keep moving. The front doors opened without a knock. Hyun-woo Kang walked in first. Charcoal suit pulled too tight across the shoulders. Burgundy pocket square, a bright wound at his chest. 4 men behind him. Dark coats. Hands visible and empty in a way that meant hands would not stay empty. So-yeon was not with him. That detail mattered. So-yeon knew when to be somewhere else. Clara stepped out of the kitchen and stopped at the edge of the marble foyer, apron still on, hair still pinned. "Clara," Hyun-woo's voice was the sound of a man performing calm. "We need to talk in the sitting room." "We can talk here." He crossed the foyer in 5 strides. His hand closed around her right wrist and pulled her toward the wide marble staircase, toward the banister where his brother's portrait watched from above. He pressed her forearm flat against the cold stone. Not hard enough to bruise yet, hard enough for her to understand what came next if she moved. One of the men set a leather folio on the banister rail beside her hand. He opened it. Single sheet, waiver of claim, a fountain pen laid diagonal across the page. Sign. Clara did not look at the paper. She looked at Hyun-woo's left eyebrow, at the small old scar there, and let the silence sit between them. "Sign it, Clara, tonight. Then you walk out the back door with the dignity of a woman who knew her place. Refuse, and my patience becomes a different room." She let one breath out through her nose. "The pasta is going to burn." He blinked. It was small, but it was a blink. Behind him, one of the men shifted his weight to the other foot. Clara had bought herself 2 seconds. She used them. "Your brother had a mug on his desk," she said, quiet. "Blue rim, chipped on the left side. He rinsed it himself every night. Did you know that? Sign the paper." He also kept his ledger in a leather folder, not in the safe, behind the philosophy shelf on the second landing. The shelf only I cleaned. The pressure on her wrist did not change, but something behind Hyun-woo's eyes did. A flicker of a man remembering that his brother had always been careful in ways he was not. "You're lying. Then let go of my wrist and prove it." He did not let go, but he did not press harder either. He turned his head half an inch toward the man on his right. "Kwan, second landing, philosophy shelf." The man moved. Clara used the shift of Hyun-woo's attention to slide her free hand into the apron pocket. The shards were still there, the teacup from the morning of the radio broadcast. She had never emptied that pocket. She had washed the apron with the shards inside, 3 cycles, and put them back after. She did not know why until this moment. Her thumb found the sharpest edge. Upstairs, Kwan's steps went quiet on the runner, then quieter on the landing, then stopped, then started again, quicker, back down. He was at the top of the staircase, looking down at Hyunwoo, with a leather folder in his hand, and no expression at all. Hyunwoo's grip loosened 1 degree. Clara did not smile. She simply lifted her wrist out from under his hand and stepped 1 step back. The apron pocket clinked once, softly, against her thigh. Nobody in the foyer knew what the sound was. She did. "Okay, she called, loud enough for the pantry to hear. "Okay, twice. A latch clicked in the distance. Good. The old woman was safe and would stay where she was. Hyunwoo's hand had not gone anywhere useful. It hovered near his own hip, deciding. The 4 men behind him were watching him, not her. That was the mistake. They had come to see a maid signed and dismissed. They had not been briefed on a woman who had spent a decade learning the geometry of this house from the inside. "Kwan, Yeon," Woo said. "Bring me the folder." "Bring it to me instead," Clara said. Nobody moved. A car door slammed outside, then another. Headlights washed pale through the tall front windows and died against the marble. Wrong angle for the driveway. Somebody had parked at the service road behind the east wall, the road only staff used. Hyunwoo turned his head toward the sound. Just an inch. Just enough. Clara looked up at the portrait of Kang Do-hyun above the staircase. The black koi curled up his neck in the paint, and his dark, serious eyes met hers the way they had that first morning 10 years ago in the corridor. She held that look for 1 full second. Then the lights in the foyer cut out. The dark came down like a lid. Clara didn't move. Neither did Hyunwoo. His grip on her wrist stayed exactly where it had been a heartbeat ago. The same marble edge, the same pressure, but the room had changed around him. He couldn't see her face anymore. He could only feel her pulse under his thumb, steady, steadier than his own. Somewhere behind him, a bolt slid into place, metal on metal, front door, then a second one, side entrance. Sojin's voice came from the top of the staircase. "Quiet. Nobody leaves." One of the 4 men reached for his coat. He didn't finish the movement. Seo-jin was already down 4 steps, weapon low, professional. "Hands on the banister," he said. "All 4. Now." Hyunwoo turned his head toward the stairs. He didn't let go of Clara. That was his mistake. Clara used the second his attention broke. She twisted her wrist against his thumb, the weakest point of any grip, and slid free. 2 steps back. Her hand went behind her, along the wall, until it found the edge of the philosophy shelf. She pressed once. The panel behind the 3rd row of books gave a soft click. Only she had ever cleaned that shelf. She'd dusted it every Tuesday for 4 years. She knew which spine wasn't a book. The leather folder came out into her hand. "Whatever that is," Hyunwoo said, "burn it." "You should have let me pour the tea," Clara said. Calm. "You would have learned less." She walked past him, past So-yeon, who had come out of the shadows, and stopped when she saw Seo-jin. Past the 4 men now bent over the banister with their palms flat on the marble. Clara set the folder on the long dining table where the will had been read 6 days ago. She opened it. She did not touch what was inside. She only turned it so the pages faced the room. The first page was a printed transcript, a phone conversation, a date 3 months before Kang Do-hyun's death. The second page was a bank record, wire transfer, rival faction to a shell account. The account holder's signature at the bottom was a name in a soft, disciplined hand. Min J. Park. "He didn't kill him with a bullet," Clara said. She wasn't looking at anyone. She was looking at the portrait above the fireplace. He killed him with stress. He arranged the shipments that failed. He leaked the roots. He put pressure on Do-hyun's chest every single week for a year, and he smiled while he did it. He wanted the throne, and he had a buyer for it. So-yeon's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Hyun-woo took one step toward the table. So-jin's weapon moved with him. The gate bell rang. Long, steady, not a delivery ring. Oh-kei came out of the pantry with the pantry key in her palm. Clara had given her the spare that morning, quietly, without saying why. Oh-kei crossed the foyer, pressed the intercom button, and said the two words Clara had told her to say. Let them in. Yoon Ji-won walked through the front door first. Slate gray suit, leather briefcase. Behind him, 3 men in dark coats Clara had never seen. The syndicate council. Behind them, 2 men in slate uniforms with the Corregidoria seal on the sleeve. Clara had written the letter to the council 4 days ago. She had written the letter to the Corregidoria 3 days ago. She had trusted no one to deliver them except Aki's grandson. Yoon looked at the folder on the table. He looked at Hyun-woo. He said one sentence. Sit down, all of you. The council took the folder. They read the first page. They read the second. The oldest of the 3 raised his eyes toward Min-jae, who wasn't there, and then toward the front hall, where a 4th man from the council was already opening the door to the study. Min-jae was found sitting in Do-hyun's armchair, reading. Small, polite smile still on his face when the council entered. He stood up when they spoke to him. He did not resist. Council code allows a man to walk out on his own feet if he has read the room. He walked out on his own feet. Hyun-woo and So-yeon were escorted to the iron gates by 2 of Seo-jin's men. So-yeon's stiletto snapped on the 3rd step of the front stairs, and she did not stop to pick it up. Hyun-woo said nothing at all. The gates opened. The gates closed. No shot was fired inside the estate. No shot needed to be. Oh-kei turned off the stove. The burned pot went into the sink to soak. The council spoke with Yoon in the study for 20 minutes. When they left, one of them stopped at the foyer and bowed to Clara. Not deep. Just enough. She returned it the same way. The house went quiet. Clara climbed the stairs to the room that had been hers as staff for 4 years. She took off the black dress and the white apron. She folded them once, set them on the small chair, left them there. From the wardrobe in the master suite, the one Do-hyun had ordered filled the week before he died, and Clara had understood the meaning of only tonight. She took the fitted dark dress with the discreet neckline. She let her hair down. The bun undid itself into soft, loose curls that fell to her shoulders. Low heels, no apron, no pin. She descended the central staircase slowly, not for anyone, for herself. She crossed the great room to the leather armchair by the fireplace, Do-hyun's armchair, the one no one else had ever sat in. She sat. Her hand went to the worn spot on the right armrest, where his hand had rested for 20 years, and she left it there. The portrait above the fireplace looked back at her. You saw me for real, she whispered. Now I'm going to honor that. The fire held steady. If you want to watch all the stories without any ads and also get access to bonus scenes, extended epilogues, and exclusive spicy chapters, head over to our Patreon. Scan the QR code on the screen. The link is in the description or in the pinned comment. See you there. If this story moved you, stop for a moment and reflect. Have you ever served someone for years, while everyone around them treated you as invisible, and then discovered you were the only one who truly saw them? Have you ever held a truth hidden behind a shelf that only you cleaned, knowing it could bring down people who laughed at your uniform? What would you do if the one person who looked you in the eyes was gone, and his name was the only thing left to protect? Tell us your experiences and feelings in the comments. We read them all. And if you believe in stories about dignity, invisibility, and hidden loyalty, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a part of our community and help the channel.